Welcome to Bariatric Business Accelerator, the short but impactful podcast created for busy practitioners and their teams. I'm your host, Karol Clark, and this is part 2 of From Chaos to Systems. In part 1 last week, I asked you a diagnostic question. If you or one of your key employees were out for 2 weeks, what would break in your practice or your program that you run? If you haven't done that exercise yet, I encourage you to do so before you watch this episode, because what we're covering today is going to feel a lot more useful once you know where your biggest gaps are in your practice. So today I'm walking you through 3 systems that will give you the most relief in the shortest amount of time. I'm all about results. I'm not going to give you a list of 15 things to build. That's very overwhelming, I would think, and most of it won't really happen. You don't have time for that. I'm giving you 3. So let's start with system 1. This is patient intake and onboarding. The first system that is impacting your practice, this is what I call the process that takes someone from I'm interested to I'm enrolled, engaged, and a patient who understands exactly what they signed up for when they signed up to work with you and your team. In practices without this system, intake looks differently every single time. One patient gets a thorough welcome call, the next one gets a form emailed to them or texted to them, and then nothing until their appointment. Another one shows up not really knowing what to expect and leaves feeling a little bit confused, and maybe they come back and maybe they don't. But what a real intake system does is makes that experience very consistent, regardless of who on your team is handling it. It includes a defined first contact script or online communication, so whoever answers the phone or responds to the online inquiry says the right things in that process. And it doesn't let anyone slip through the cracks. It includes a clear sequence of what happens after somebody inquires, how quickly they're contacted, what that expectation is, that KPI, what information they receive, how they're prepped for their first appointment so that they're excited to come see you. This system directly impacts your conversion rate, believe it or not. When patients feel well informed and well cared for from the very first touch point, they tend to show up, they engage better, and they trust you before they've even met you. The second system is follow-up and retention. Makes sense, the next aspect. The second system is the one that gets neglected the most often, I see, and it's the one that quietly costs practices the most revenue. Think about how many patients have come through your doors in the last 2 years. Now, think about how many of them are still actively engaged with your practice. For most practices, that number is lower than it should be, not because the patient had a bad experience necessarily, but because nobody had a system for keeping in touch with them and keeping them engaged. A follow-up system doesn't have to be complicated. It's a defined touch point sequence, meaning post-consult, post-procedure, at 30 days, 90 days, your cadence. You decide what that is, and your team executes it consistently. It can be a mix of calls, emails, texts, newsletters. The point is that it has to be on a schedule automatically without anyone having to remember. Retention is where your revenue stabilizes. New patient acquisition is expensive, but keeping the patients you already have, that's not expensive. A follow-up system is how you will do that. Okay, system 3, referral tracking and cultivation. The third system is an actual system, not a mental note or trying to remember who to reach out to about which physicians sent you patients, but a documented process for knowing where your referrals come from, which physicians, what sources, what patients, where in the community are you getting resources or online, what's actively working, and what are you doing to nurture those relationships. I've worked with practices that had a strong referral relationship for years and didn't even realize one of their top sources had gone away quietly until they really looked at their numbers. When you're not tracking your referrals, you don't know what you're losing until it can often already be gone. A basic referral system includes a way to capture where every new patient came from, a calendar rhythm for staying in contact with your referral sources, a simple outreach process, a way to keep your patients, sending more patients your way, a quarterly call, a thank you note, an educational lunch, anything to keep those relationships warm and working. It doesn't have to be elaborate, it just has to be consistent, honestly. Many people don't really realize that, but you can have a good enough principle And I want to close, before I close, I want to address this. It's what stops most practitioners from ever building these systems: perfectionism. I suffer from it too. It's that belief that you're going to have to document a process that has to be fully comprehensive and really, really have all these bells and whistles for it. It doesn't have to be that way. Just a one-page checklist that your team actually follows is worth so much more than a 50-page manual that lives in a folder or in a cloud somewhere that nobody even refers to. Done is better than perfect, and you can refine it as you go, which you will. These three systems: patient intake and onboarding, follow-up and retention, and referral tracking and cultivation, pick which one feels the most urgent to you in your practice and start there. And then in part 3 next week, we're going to tackle the piece that makes or breaks all of this. And that's getting your team to actually help set up these systems and use them. Because if it's a system but your team doesn't follow it, it's not a system. It's really just a document or something that's out there that you think or wish people are going to follow. It also creates a great orientation and onboarding tool for when you do have team members who leave for one reason or another and you have a new person coming on board. It makes their onboarding experience so much more pleasant, and it also makes the experience for the person who's orienting them a lot easier. So just pick one of these. Let's just start somewhere, whichever one resonates with you the most. And like I say, done is better than perfect, and I suffer from the same perfectionism so often. But done is better than perfect, and we want to make sure we have these in place so that you're attracting the right patients, that you're onboarding them properly, that you're keeping them and cultivating that relationship, and you're keeping your referral sources active and more people coming into your practice. So I hope you found this helpful. I will see you next week in the third part of this series. I'm Karol Clark, and you can always reach me through weightlosspracticebuilder.com. I'm excited to have you here, and if this could help any one of your colleagues or someone else that you know, please pass it on. In the meantime, thanks so much, and talk to you next week.